Here we have verse 2 of the third chapter of the Gospel of John. We've been introduced now to Nicodemus, who was said to be a ruler of the Jews, and now having been introduced to his name, we hear something of what he does. So this one, hutos, demonstrative pronoun, referring of course back to Nicodemus, is the masculine singular nominative. This one, eilthen, came. Aorist, second aorist, third person singular. This one came. Pros, auton. Whenever action is implied, movement, as in came, then pros auton, that is, the preposition pros with the accusative tends to be used rather than auto, the dative, to come to someone, implies motion. So we have this arrangement. This one came to him. Nuktos, the genitive of nukes, the word for night. This is a genitive indicating the time within which something is happening. So this one came by night, presumably coming not so much for fear of the disciples, but fear of his own colleagues on the Sanhedrin, who might view dimly his approaching Jesus in the open daytime, and so he comes, at least impliedly, that's the impression I think we're supposed to draw from it, in a sense surreptitiously, nocturnally, coming to Jesus. Kai apen says, this is the aorist of lego, second aorist, third person singular, and says auto, to him. Of course, here we do have the dative as opposed to here with the accusative, because at this point he says to him, whereas over here it was going to him. Just a little interesting difference in the grammatical structure there of the Greek language. So he comes by night and says to him, Rabbi, term of some dignity, some respect, showing that this man, who is indeed himself a respected leader and teacher in Israel, nevertheless is prepared to acknowledge and address Jesus with a similar kind of dignity. Rabbi, oidamen, from one of two different words that could mean to know. Oida is the most likely one here. So oida, I know. Here it is, we know. Oidamen, first person plural, we know. And the we here is presumably referring to other colleagues of Nicodemus on the Sanhedrin. Even those who may be hostile to Jesus must be forced in some way to acknowledge that Jesus is coming with a commanding supernatural kind of sanction upon him. They just don't like it. But here we find in Nicodemus a more cordial recognition of that aspect of this display of power that we find in Jesus. So we know, hoti, that apo, preposition, takes the genitive from theou, from God. Aleluthos, this is the perfect. This is the second person singular, from erkamai, to come. So we know that from God you are come, and the perfect implies that the fact that Jesus came from God continues to be an imprimatur upon him. It continues to be an evident aspect of him. From God you are come, didaskalos, a teacher. So we know that, or we see that, and acknowledge that you are a teacher come from God. And the persuasive reason for this is that oudeis, no one, this is an adjective, standing alone substantively, no one, for gar, for no one, dunatai, from dunamai, I am able, this is no one is able, to tauta, these things, this case ta semeia. No one is able, these the things, this is the idiom by which the demonstrative pronoun is used, these the things, literally, but of course translated, these things, poiein, infinitive, present infinitive. No one is able these things to do. Ha, the relative pronoun, neuter, plural, which you, su, singular, poies, same word as here, that you do, and this is again present, second person singular. No one is able to do these signs which you do, eme, idiomatically, if not, but usually translated unless or except. Ian takes the subjunctive, so this is the third person singular subjunctive, unless, hotheos, be, in the subjunctive, unless God is met from meta takes the genitive autou, unless God is with him. So Nicodemus has looked at the evidence and reached the only conclusion that is rational under the circumstances, namely, that anyone who can do the things, the signs that Jesus is doing, must have some supernatural sanction upon him, and that sanction is evidently coming from God. And so Nicodemus is drawing the conclusion from the evidence that drives him to come to Jesus with the inquiries that presumably he has in his mind.